Good evening, Jody Ward. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm fabulous. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so my first question is, how important are communication skills in learning?
Communication skills are very important in learning both with the teacher and the student, as like giving directions, following directions, having them be able to communicate back to you whether they understand what you're saying, and being able to further use those communication skills to succeed in the classroom.
What about with their friends as well? Do you think that that's important?
Totally.
And why is that important?
I have a student who is autistic, and he has a very difficult time communicating with his friends. So he'll throw a fit, scratch his head, and my thought is that I just need to reassure him that things are okay, and learning to take turns and speaking to somebody is super important.
Awesome. Okay, so my next question is, what areas of communication do you believe are most necessary for school success? This could be form, which are the rules that define how words go together in a sentence that make it correct or grammatically correct. Content, which would be the meaning of the language, in other words, like vocab or what the words mean. And then the last one is use, which are like the pragmatics of communication, which is the understanding of social conventions, which would be like how they interact socially.
Okay, so I would think that vocab is super important to the students that I work with. They need to learn to be able to use vocabulary in the content area,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be able to figure out what a word might be if they don't know it. So using context clues to be able to figure that out.
Okay. Um, what about in communication, like communicating with other students? Would your answer still be content, which is the vocab, or would it be like the use, which is how they understand social conventions with other students?
Well, when you're dealing with people communicating, students communicating with one another, it would be being able to take social cues from people. For instance, if somebody is feeling like they're getting too close to them when they're talking, they'll back away. Or
Okay.
if somebody is being too loud, they'll cover their ears. So those cues given by other students are super important as well.
Okay. The third question that I have is, what percentage of the students on your caseload also have language delays? If they are not diagnosed with a specific language impairment, how many of your students do you suspect have language deficits?
I have 4 students that see a speech teacher, and one of my students, no, actually I have 5. One of my students actually wears hearing aids, and we use a system, an FM system, when he's in the classroom. So the lead teacher uses the FM system around her neck, and then it is programmed to both of his hearing aids.
Okay.
The other 4 students that are in speech are just language delay.
Gotcha. And then how many students do you have on your caseload altogether?
Well, I have 12 on my caseload, and I have an assistant this year, and she has 5.
Okay. And do any of her students have a language deficit
they
or
do not.
language delay? Okay. My next question is, what might you observe if a student is exhibiting language deficits? Like, what would you see in that student that would make you think that they have a language deficit?
Well, a lot of times there's a language deficit when they're reading and they aren't able to segment words, or they aren't able to sound words out, whether you're framing them or highlighting them or pronouncing them. And so the meaning that they will get from a word is totally different than maybe what the word actually is.
Okay. What else do you think you might observe in a student with a language deficit?
I would say maybe even communication between students. I have one student that's, once again, noise level has to be very minimal. He gets very frustrated if somebody's speaking to him or rushing him. He will throw a complete fit, and all I have to do is have him focus on my eyes and talk him through it.
So my fifth question is, what content areas do you believe are most affected by language delays?
Well, I would say reading, writing, reading fluency, reading comprehension, and writing. They all really tie together. With reading fluency, if a student can't sound out a word, they'll get a total different meaning from the actual piece of literature they're reading. Same with comprehension. They may think it's a different word, and the answering to a question might be totally off base.
So they may not understand what's being asked of them or what they're trying to answer.
Correct.
Which do you find most difficult to remediate? Receptive or expressive language deficits?
That's a good question.